now.
So now share screen with her.
No, now I want to go back. We have to go back.
There you
Because
go.
none of this was recorded earlier.
That's why I couldn't find the button, because she was host, right?
Well, street naming should be on it, right?
I think you could editorially say
Okay.
that we,
Okay.
we had a technical error and that, we unanimously approved the, street renaming, and recommended it to the board.
Did it say it was recording though?
Yes, so
Because now I have to
Okay,
record
so
this
they're
out.
recording.
Continue, David. I'm waiting for you. I was just going to say, yeah, what David said. No, good evening, everyone. For the recording, we had a bit of technical difficulties in the beginning. I will note for the record that the chairperson welcomed guests and invitees, and she also introduced the family of Mr. James Pike, who is to be honored in a street naming of 230th Street and West Tibet Avenue. The committee unanimously voted to approve the street naming and renaming, and we informed the family that we will have to present this matter to the full board for 2 consecutive months, so that would be the October and the November meetings. And then at which time, once we have the recordings from the full board, then we will have, we will present, if the full board approves, we will present the matter to the city for proper process for renaming that corner. We are now up to the part of the agenda where we are receiving an update from the New York City DOT. And on the call from New York City DOT are Holly Malone, Teresa Cruz, Lisa Marasco, and Finley Scanlon. Okay? And now I'm going to, Lisa, share with you, give you the rights again, and then this way you can pull up the presentation.
And that you also accept the minutes?
My name is,
Julie, yes, you may speak.
Oh, no, I was just asking, didn't you also accept the minutes in the beginning of the meeting?
Yes, we did. Thank you.
Just hold on.
Lisa. Lisa, are you grabbing? Okay. Perfect.
unmute.
Great.
Yes. And
Thanks, guys. So thanks for inviting us this evening. I'm here to present the updated plan for Community Board 8. I'm a senior planner here on the Bike Share and Shared Mobility team. As you mentioned, I'm here with my teammate Finlay. And first, we're going to do just a brief overview of Bike Share. We're going to talk a little bit about our planning process, and then we'll present the updated plan. So what is Bike Share? It's a sustainable mode of transportation that's made up of a dense network of bicycles. It really helps increase mobility around neighborhoods by giving just one more option to get around. It complements existing infrastructure. So really, for example, you can turn a long walk to the subway into a really quick bike ride. It's also available 24/7, really provides all the benefits of having a bike in the city without storage or maintenance. So City Bike is New York City's bike share system. It is the largest and most utilized in the country. It's a public-private partnership between DOT. We're responsible for the system planning and outreach. Lyft is responsible for the day-to-day operations. No city funds are used to run the system. It's supported by revenue generated from memberships and other fees. City Bike, it's a station-based system. So that means bikes must be retrieved and returned to docks on each station. They can be on the sidewalk or the roadway. They are not solar powered, or they're solar powered, so they don't require any trenching in the ground. So they take about an hour or 2 to install. So we've just celebrated 10 years of City Bike. Phase 1 in the lightest blue on the slice blue on the map shows the original service area. It launched in 2013. Phase 2 doubled that service area and expanded into Queens for the first time. And then our phase 3 expansion is going to double the phase 1 and 2 service areas. We filled out Manhattan, we expanded a little further into Brooklyn and Queens, and then into the Bronx for the first time. So the program itself has been tremendously successful. We've seen a lot of growth. We're almost at 200 million trips to date. On average, we see about 4 trips per bike per day. In our peak riding months, on average, we're seeing 120,000 rides or over 120,000. And on the busiest days, we're seeing over 150,000 daily rides. We have about 200,000 annual members. 11,000 are reduced fare bike share members. And I'll get into what that means in the next slide. So we have a couple of different membership options. So we have what we call our casual members. You can do a single ride. It's just one 30-minute ride. We have a day pass, which is unlimited 30-minute bike rides in a 24-hour period. And essentially what that means is you have 24 hours to take trips that are 30 minutes or less in that 24-hour period. Annual members are $205 a year, about $17 a month. And those are 45-minute unlimited rides. And our reduced fare bike share, RFBS, what I mentioned in the last slide, are discounted memberships. And that's for NYCHA residents and SNAP recipients. It's $5 a month. There's no annual commitment, and it includes the unlimited 45-minute rides. I will flag that, if you take an e-bike ride or go over the allotted time, you do incur some fees. So we do a variety of different equity efforts. So reduced fare bike share is one of them, but Lyft participates in community grants, which are given to community-based organizations that engage with low-income or minority populations. We also do partner keys and codes to help sort of expand programming and education. They also have an equity advisory board that help guide a lot of these efforts as well. So DOT promotes safe cycling in a variety of ways. We do helmet giveaways, light and bell giveaways, safety awareness classes. We also, on each one of the bikes, have the sort of core rules of the road, as you can see here in this lower image. So to help, remind folks as they're riding around the best practices. Now we're going to get into a little bit about the planning process. We'll start with station siting. So the success of this system or this program has really been due to the high density of stations throughout the service area. The goal is to really make sure that you're no more than a 3 to 5 minute walk once you're inside the service area. And so we really sort of scan, the expansion zone to try to identify all what we call our technically viable space on the ground. And things that we have to look out for are going to be, ADA accessibility, making sure that we comply with all of those, proximity to hydrants, utilities, different elements on the sidewalk, all those sorts of things. A little bit about our public outreach. We have a couple of ways that we do this. We do have our street ambassador team. They go out onto sort of core commercial corridors or transit hubs. So essentially anywhere people are going to be walking around, and we, one, give them information about the program, inform them that it's coming. 2, we ask them where do they want to see stations, where do they maybe not want to see stations. We also launch an interactive feedback portal. We host a variety of stakeholder meetings, and then during this process, we collected almost 400 comments during this period. So from there, we create this draft plan, and we use that feedback that I just discussed as sort of like a guide. But we also have to incorporate our citing principles, our guidelines, as well as Lyft's operational considerations. And so we presented this, I believe Sam Hope presented this earlier this year this summer to your board. So a little bit about, what the next steps are going to be. We gather feedback on the draft plan. We're ongoing right now. We're doing technical screening and coordination. We're about to start our site-specific outreach and notification. So essentially, that's what I call our door-to-door notifications. So any station or any property that's like directly adjacent to a station is going to get notified by DOT or Lyft. Once we install those stations, we'll continue to do outreach, monitoring, and make any adjustments where necessary. So now I'm going to go into the updated plan review. This is a general overview of the plan for CB8. I will post this online so you guys will have access to it starting, early tomorrow. The next few slides are going to be a zoom in of that map. So this is going to be the northwest section bound by Irving, and Bailey, just south of Van Cortlandt. Just as a basic overview, stations that are squares represent roadbed stations. This one here is going to represent a roadbed on the west side of Tibbet, just south of 234. Triangles are going to be sidewalk stations. So this one is on the west side of Broadway, just north of 234. I'm going to give folks just a couple of minutes to review this map. We have 3 more to review, but we can always go back to any one of these, if you guys have further questions. But I'll give you a couple moments now to review.
My first question is, when you all originally presented this plan to us, and in subsequent communications with your office, we asked specifically to give us the number of parking spaces that are impacted by each station. Have you been able to ascertain that?
So on average, we're still in the process of getting all of our drawings developed and doing those final surveys that I talked about. So it's hard to put an exact number, but on average, right here we're going to see on average about 21 docks per station. Ones maybe near transit hubs are going to be a little bit bigger, but it's on average 21 docks, which is roughly 2.5 parking spaces if it's in the roadbed.
So did you factor in any daylighting sites into this equation?
Absolutely. Where we could, and we could identify them and they aligned with all of our technical criteria, we absolutely prioritize those locations.
Okay, and when will you have this information available so that it can be to the board, the committee, and to the community at large?
You mean the number
So
of parking spaces repurposed?
Yes, those are questions that we get repeatedly every time this issue comes up.
Okay, well,
I'm sorry. Yeah, so Kelly, your question wasn't, I got your question as soon as we're finished with this. Lisa will send over that information to us and we'll definitely forward it to you. I did get your questions earlier when you sent it. We're just waiting to finalize this plan so we can have a number for you.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Sorry, Lisa, didn't mean to jump in.
It's okay.
Just looking at this Kingsbridge section, you're already talking about 12 spaces, because of the rectangle showing the roadbed as opposed to the triangles on the sidewalk. So, that data is going to be important because there certainly will be a lot of pushback from the people who live in Kingsbridge. So, you'll go on to the Kingsbridge Heights section shortly, but using your criteria, it sounds like about 12 parking spaces already.
Right, and I mean, I think, in most, in a lot of communities, we understand that parking is a premium, so we do try to minimize however we can, the impact to on-street parking.
Or bike ridership.
Do you guys want to take a few more moments with this, or do you want me to go ahead and move? forward.
No, there's another question on the floor, Josh.
Yeah, I just have a question. How many more bike riders will be on the street?
Did you say how many more bike riders will be on the street?
Correct,
Yeah,
that's the
what's the
question.
ridership number?
Yeah, I mean, I think, ridership, like, I think in any area that's like new to bike share, there's an initial, like, it's not going to be like a tremendous increase in like bike ridership, but I think, over time as people are seeing it, in the community, understanding exactly actually like how it connects to like places that they're regularly going, we'll start to see ridership increase in areas. But I don't think that you're going to see this like tremendous like boom and there's going to be just like cyclists everywhere. There's no way I can predict or like have a general idea of like, how many riders are going to be out there. But I hope that this community, as they see it, rolled out, that they'll start integrating it into their day-to-day lives.
Now, there's only one bike path on Tibbet Ave.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, cycling is legal on, most city roads.
I'll get into that later after they show the other two segments, because there's some serious issues here, but.
Sorry, it's a little hard to hear. Just.
No, it's okay. David, explained to Josh that, there are going to be more questions and that the city bikes are not really part of the bike lane program. Is that agree?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, it's a different program.
For the recreational vein, right.
So, City Bike can be used as recreational and transportation. A lot of what we see are like the vast majority of city bike rides are under 15 minutes. So what we're seeing is like, people who live in New York City, using it to either like they're connecting to trains. Like for me, like there's one grocery store, that's like a little too far to walk to, like I'm not going to take a cab there, but with a bike ride it turns like a 20-minute walk into like a 5-minute bike ride and makes it way more accessible. So that's how we usually see this system like used in communities. It's just sort of like it expands your reach and makes things a lot more accessible. And so that's generally how we see it play out in different communities. It's just sort of like most rides start and end in the same neighborhoods and community boards. So it's really just like expanding reaches.
One other question, can you explain again why, to those that are not familiar with this process, why you all did not cross over Irwin Avenue and go into Riverdale and Spuyten Duyvil?
Sure. So I think, for us, like the phase 3, like the larger geography, we wanted to make sure we got to a substantial portion of the Bronx. But we also just had like a limitation of equipment. And we wanted to, just make sure the areas that we're going to sort of filled out. I think, we've heard a lot of feedback to say that, they wanted it, those community like Riverdale really wants it. So it's definitely something that we're looking at potentially, as we explore any additional expansions. I think it would make a whole lot of sense to go there. But it's just a limitation of, our resources.
Thank you. You can, yes,
This was
Chris.
something brought up when DOT was here originally also, and I think it was brought up by David.
I'm so sorry, can you speak just a little louder?
Several of our Metro North stations are very remote to get to, specifically Spuyten Duyvil and Riverdale. Marble Hill you can get to. So those two were gonna be ideal spots for these bicycles to have a docking station there. While I have you, and you can hear me, one other question I have is, how do bikes get retrieved that are not returned to docking stations? Because I've seen in other areas, they're just dropped and littered in certain places and stay there for days on end. And I'm wondering, does the person that rents it get penalized, or it just stays there, and I don't know if they ever get collected? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I'm also, just to flag, there's somebody in the waiting room. Is everyone okay with me just admitting? It's just a telephone number. Is that okay?
Thank you, it's a public meeting, so just let them.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Just added up. So yes, Lyft has what you call like a recovery team. So they'll go out and try to collect bikes. There's a couple things that happen. Yes, like if
Lisa, hold on one
somebody,
moment, please.
I'm sorry, can the phone call please mute the 914 number?
I'm gonna try to mute them right now.
Yeah.
Thank you, that was going to be my question to you.
Oh, sorry.
I just muted them. Perfect.
Perfect, thank you, continue,
You're
Lisa.
welcome. One, yes, city, like if you take out a bike and you don't return it, within the 30-minute period, and it extends, at like over like a few days, you will get charged a fee for that bike. Now, if you are noticing bikes on the street, City Bike won't necessarily know that it's there. Like the what we call our classic bikes, or just our pedal bikes, don't have GPS on them. So we will know that they're missing from the system, but we might not know where they are. So if community members, like, obviously, like, once it's in the service area, there are going to be people like, moving around the system, rebalancing, like, taking bikes out that need to be repaired, all of that sort of good stuff. And we'll collect those as needed. But, we do need help, collecting that information on where they're located. That said, once we do get that information, sometimes the bikes move. So it can be a challenging process, but we do, facilitate it. If you guys are seeing it, the best people to reach out to is DOT. You can reach out to Holly. She will, the Borough Commissioner's office, they'll forward it to me, and I'll make sure a team member gets out there as soon as possible.
Will you also give consideration to the 2 Metro North stations I mentioned to you? Because
Yes,
they're very
sorry.
remote.
Yes.
Especially on weekends. They do have a shuttle service that Metro North provides, but not on weekends. And there are a lot of people that come to the general community, Riverdale, especially Wave Hill is right near that train station, and this would be an ideal spot. So going back to Chair Kelly's original comment, you should really give consideration going beyond Irwin Avenue into some of these remote sections of the Northwest Bronx.
Thank you.
Lisa,
Yeah.
could you
No,
go
thank
to
you.
you go to the large map that has all 3 parts in it? It really accentuates this issue. Okay.
Oh, this, yeah.
Now, I know you're gonna get into it later, the eastern part, particularly Kingsbridge Heights.
Mhm.
But if you look at sort of the left third of that light gray area, that's west of Broadway going to Irwin.
Mhm.
There are 2 issues there. One is, which is what Chris was just talking about, you don't, other than Marble Hill at the bottom there, you don't get anywhere near the Spuyten Duyvil and Riverdale train stations, and nowhere up in the Riverdale and Spuyten Duyvil neighborhood. But moreover, while it's really good that you have docking stations along Broadway, particularly at the subway stations, the other stations you've got to the west are 3 blocks away. Who's gonna bother to take out a bike for 3 blocks?
I mean,
as I said last time, if you don't hit up the hill, if you don't get near Spuyten Duyvil, Riverdale train station, Wave Hill, I think you've missed a great deal. Again, the east side, from what I looked at the map before, it looks like you got very good coverage. But the west of Broadway, I think, is a mistake.
Parks.
thanks.
Independence Avenue,
So
Park.
yeah, sorry, say that again?
Park,
Yeah, the
Seton
park.
Park
Seton Park.
is up in that area, and that would be a prime location.
Right. There's a nice stretch of Independence to ride down, and the park.
Bike.
Commute to work, absolutely.
Yeah, to and from work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Docking stations over there,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you, Lisa. You can move to the next slide.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
Excuse me,
sorry, it's a little hard to
Kelly?
hear.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Jody, I
Kelly?
think had a, I'm sorry,
Jody?
go ahead.
Yeah, I
Jody,
just
is
had
that
a,
you?
yes, hi Kelly. I just had a question about the legend. At the subway stops, there's one triangle or square, but there's 4 dots. Does that mean that there's 3 dots on that one? Does
No.
that mean there'll be a station at each of those dots?
No, so these dots are just showing where the subway entrances are. And so this is just to kind of be representative of like, we're trying to actually provide access to where people can get to it, like on and off the subway. So that's just sort of like an extra feature for the map.
And is that triangle where it's going to be? Because the wider white part is a broad sidewalk. That's kind of narrow on that side. On the,
On the west side of Broadway here, this, what I'm circling?
yes.
So
So
we-
if you just cross 238th Street to that really wide white part of the street, that's a big sidewalk over there. It's
Here?
concreted over. Yeah, there's a big concreted sidewalk. It's very wide on that side.
The
Okay.
triangle.
I can double check, you know, why,
Okay.
you know, why we might have chosen just
I
north
think
over versus
there's a
south.
Rite Aid right there.
Yeah.
That's the Rite Aid where that
Yeah.
triangle is.
There's
Right.
a very big sidewalk there that's completely unused except
9
for-
bus stops is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then down at 231st Street,
Here.
Yes.
you have to, let me see, can I see it on the map? I think you have to shift the map a little bit for me. 231st Street subway stop.
Oh, yeah, no, here. I'm circling it. It's at the very bottom of the map.
Okay,
At
wait.
Broadway,
Oh, yeah.
231.
I s- Yeah, I see it. Okay, great. So then,
Take away
I
parking.
see that corner. Okay, because there's there's a wide sidewalks there, but there's a lot of people waiting at the bus stop. So I see where that's gonna be. That's on a very narrow corner. I think that's where the elevator is.
It is, but there is no bus stop there, and that symbol is for it to be in the street, not on the sidewalk.
Exactly. It's a very it's kind of tight there with all the parking and the buses coming in 2 directions.
Because of the double parking, but it's a wide street, but it's tight because of all of the double parking at that area.
Yeah, yeah. And so I can imagine that double parking will not cease because I've been here almost 30 years and it still hasn't. So that's just a consideration about the on the ground stuff. And then for the train stations, Spuyten Duyvil is actually, the parking lot there is a DOT street. The Riverdale station, I think, is leased out by Metro North. It's owned by Metro North and it's leased out. So I don't know if you could put that in non-DOT streets.
We just, you know, might not have to do a negotiation or like an agreement, you know, with folks that can be challenging sometimes, but you're saying that the Riverdale it's leased by Metro North. So we can look
Metro North, I believe, leases that property to a parking, it's paid parking. You have to pay to park
Right,
there
a
except
paid
on the
parking.
weekends. But
Lisa Laz.
But Spuyten Duyvil is a mapped DOT street, the parking lot. So that's one of the free parking lots on the whole Hudson line.
Okay. And you're saying these are next to the Metro North station, just to like be clear.
Yeah, it's the parking lots of the Metro North stations.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
You can, thank you, Jody. You can go to the
Welcome,
next
thank
slide,
you.
Lisa, please.
Sure. I'm going to move to the next part of the map, which is the northeast section just south of Van Portland. We have 4 stations here.
So help me understand why you have two docking stations along Van Cortlandt Park South that are 3 blocks from each other.
So what, this area in particular, I'd say was very challenging. As you can see that there are a lot of like narrow and, undulating roads that that don't have right angles. Sorry, I'm like forgetting my terminology here. But essentially like any curve in the road that you see is going to be really challenging for the equipment. So we had to identify areas of the street that are wide enough, to accommodate a station. We have to make sure that there's like enough clearance for moving lanes, parking, et cetera. So this particular area was just challenging. But these two places where you see on Van Cortlandt are going to be access points to the park, and bike access points. And so that's why those were prioritized.
Okay, so then what you're saying is that the rest of that geographic location will not have access, because I can tell you that's a very hilly area as well, number one, and number two, you have the curve, so it sort of goes against the grain of the intent of the City Bike program, where you want people to ride up and down the hill, but you don't have any place for these people on Cannon Place or along Sedgwick Avenue to dock the bike once they pick it up at one of the train stations. So what do they do with the bike? Because I can tell you, people aren't walking over to Stevenson Place or Sedgwick Avenue and Hillman Avenue from Cannon Place to dock a bike. It's just not going to happen.
Sure. I mean, certainly if you guys feel like there should be, we should take a second look at certain areas, we're happy to do that and provide additional clarity on, why we might not be able to put a station, or maybe we can try to, figure out other opportunities in some of these areas for a station.
Yes, David, has a question.
Yes, Lisa, this is actually, I think, a good layout for docking stations in terms of the proximity to a lot of residences, particularly the Amalgamated, which has many, many, many apartments. The only reservation I've got about it is putting it in the roadbed, because you're taking away a lot of parking spaces. And there actually is a fair amount of room, the fairly wide sidewalks and park area, where you could put it on the sidewalk.
In which area?
Actually, all 4 of them.
So, I mean, I definitely know by Van Cortlandt, the sidewalks are too narrow. So essentially, most sidewalks at minimum need to be 15 feet wide to be able to accommodate the stations when bikes are docked and provide ADA clearance. So we just don't, in certain, areas of CB8, it's just really challenging to find anything that meets that criteria. And so one of the chief things for sidewalks is going to be ADA clearances, making sure that there's a clear pedestrian path. Not only that, tree pits, it's, we love trees on streets, but, for city bike stations, we have to nestle them into, the fabric of the existing streetscape. So when tree pits are for us too close together, that means that the equipment just can't nestle inside of that. When they're over, roughly 22 feet apart from each other, we can nestle a city bike station in between a tree pit. So even if a sidewalk is 15 feet or wider, not always viable for a station, just because of all of the other elements we have to work around there.
I understand that and what you're saying is quite rational.
Is it possible that you can talk with Parks and also, I guess, DEP for the reservoir side about possibly getting some grassy area from them to put down some concrete and put in a docking station? Because I know we are going to get some fierce feedback from that community about the loss of parking there. Because we've had meetings there and we can't find parking for our meetings. And so we know that the neighbors, the people who live there, have a great deal of difficulty finding parking.
People who live in that area, they can literally drive around for 2 hours before they find a parking spot.
Yeah, I mean,
Not an exaggeration.
I hear you. This is, yeah, it's definitely not like unique. This happens in a lot of communities. We understand that like parking is a premium and, you know, it's very challenging in certain communities. But yeah, like I think, you know, we have never done that before to pave over, not to say that we wouldn't be open to exploring. I think what we can potentially do, the only thing I can say is we can talk to the reservoir, see if, you know, they would be open to like any sort of paving, seeing what might be possible. Happy to start those conversations and see, but Teresa, I don't know if you have any like additional context there. We've never done that before, but I never say never, so we can certainly open the conversation.
I think I'll just add that, you know, given the feedback, I think we can try to do one more pass to see if there's any sidewalk location that we could try to accommodate and let you guys know also. I can also reach out to Parks and see, you know, what other options we have adjacent.
Right, because you also have the nursing home right at the corner of Dickinson Avenue and Van Cortlandt. The workers there, they need to park their cars so they can take care of our seniors. You also have the 2 high schools that are on the other side of Goulden Avenue, right by Goulden and Sedgwick. And then you have the school teachers who are at PS 95 on Hillman. So that's a big issue.
And Park.
Other side of the.
There's
not a
also
lot of
Am Park,
preschool.
like a preschool
And that
in there
comes
too.
down, and that feeds off of Marshallou Parkway, so they can't do anything.
But he raised a
Good
good
point.
point.
I think it's actually, that sort of rhombus, whatever, east of Dickinson, apparently is DEP property. And there's been some issue about changing the streets and all that. But that could be a place where they could put a concrete platform. And you're talking about 30 yards away from your.
Sidewalk.
Yeah,
Well, not on the sidewalk, actually in that.
in the park area.
That sort of park area,
right.
so it's only about
30
Talking
feet
about-
away from what they're already planning.
no,
Here?
well, they're at the
Here?
bottom of it, but also mostly at the top there,
At the
yes.
top, right
Okay.
there.
Inside that,
That little green
This
red
triangle?
triangle right there, yeah.
Okay.
just below,
Yes.
not there, no, there, yeah.
In the northwest corner of that.
Okay,
That may be difficult because of how people come down Gun Hill and turn off of. Yeah.
I mean, and that, I'm not like the most familiar with that particular intersection, but what I'd say is like one other like thing we need to like always make sure is that there's gonna be good pedestrian access, right, to the stations, because we want to make sure that there's good access to the stations, clearly visible, all of that good stuff, but we will certainly explore this sort of, you know, triangle here between Marshallou and Dickens, just north of Van Cortlandt, Park South.
Thank you. You can
Kelly,
go to the
may
next
I?
slide if that's where you're going.
Kelly?
Is that Jody?
Yes,
Jody?
that's Jody.
Yes, go ahead, Jody.
I think that on that bottom where there's Goulden Avenue and there's that little triangle, I think there might be no cars allowed and part of it paved. I mean, DeWitt Clinton, the James Baldwin Outdoor Learning
Right.
Center uses part of it for their farmers market, but there might be space over there.
Right.
That is a heavily
Yes,
used
I agree.
intersection.
By the way, there is actually a
Crosswalk from that upper part of the triangle across Dickinson.
Okay,
So in terms of the pedestrian access you want, looking at a wonderful Google Maps, you'll at least have that.
okay, cool, thank you.
I do
And I
want to
just-
add that the portion by DeWitt Clinton, we did add a city bike station on West Marshallou Parkway South, right adjacent to where this intersection is. So we also were thinking about proximity here of not putting too many stations back to back.
Oh, great. And
Outside of
then
our
just
community
just
was-
for the record, I am not in favor of paving over anything that has soil or grass, especially if it's part of a park. Just so you know, when I throw a tantrum over it, you're warned.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Great. So I'm gonna move to the next slide.
I had my hand up just for a
Oh.
comment.
So sorry, Michael.
Thanks. I think speaking to the same point, and although that's not the part of the neighborhood I care about as much, if you look, kind of respecting the opinions of those residents, if you look, there's a totem, a wayfinding totem for the Old Croton Aqueduct that leads to a small kind of cutout in that area where there are a bunch of benches, and you probably could place a station between the backside of the Old Croton Aqueduct totem and where the benches are, roughly.
Where, sorry, where exactly are you referring to?
If you look where you have the N on the north side of, no, it's actually, it's just north of that N.
Which one, the
Yep.
Dickens or the
Nope,
Governor?
the one you were just on, the Dickens one, sorry, the one that you were just on, right, in Street View, just north of there, as there's the entrance to the trail, right back in there.
So what I would say is like, so we try to stay on the sort of what we call the park verge. If it goes into an interior path, we have to set up a whole separate agreement with parks. So we can investigate, opportunities to
But that's just a procedural, I understand. I totally
yes,
understand.
it is
And
procedural, but
it's a procedural, it's a procedural kind of hurdle. It's not actually a geometric or a plan or an organizational thing. It's just purely about like, I get it. You guys want it. You found spaces. You want to get them down, and they're going to work. And I'm totally in support of City Bike and expansion of City Bike, all of that. But hearing what the community is saying, the trade-off between, and also like, part of me is like, who cares about parking? But in the same sense, if you want people to be supportive of this and not making
There are a lot of
a
people
stink.
that care about parking.
I know, I
so
do.
we
I
have
do. I'm trying to support that idea. I'm saying like, let's push the city to overcome the procedural hurdle of getting an agreement to put a station in parks so as to like support what the community wants, which is preserving a parking space.
So Michael, what I'll
Okay,
say is we
thank
can
you, Michael.
certainly like talk to Van Cortlandt Park about, opportunities to put it inside the park, but there are two like primary criterias that like we often find hurdles for. There's a lot of maintenance and operations that happen within a park that, just like they basically say like, no, you can't put a station there, but we can investigate. Also, we need to make sure that there's 24-hour access to stations. So even if we put it inside the park, like then Parks has to be okay with people accessing this, this station 24/7. So that can also be a hurdle. If it's just inside, usually they're totally fine with it. But just kind of like talking through a little bit of like some of the challenges, happy to open that conversation a little bit more. I think for us, it's like, it's not even less of like a procedural thing. I can double check like widths and stuff like that with the paths and see if it's even technically viable. If it is, we can then try to open up a conversation with Van Cortlandt Park there.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Can you please move to the next slide?
Absolutely. So this is the second to last slide. We did a few different adjustments based on some feedback that we received. So we did shift a couple of stations. So one that was here on the west side of Sedgwick's shifted over to Strong Street and University at the intersection of a couple of bike paths. We did shift, one station. We essentially wanted to, a lot of those the stairs, I'm sorry, I forget, what do you call them? Thank you, like those like insane hilly streets that you have these like beautiful staircases all throughout your community. It's so cool.
Step streets?
Step streets?
Yes, step streets.
Step
They're fun to
streets.
bike up.
Thank you.
We
Sorry,
actually
it's
have
late.
25% of all of them in the city.
But so we have a couple of step streets here. So we shifted it to the other side of the step street, and then we adjusted to the other side of Washington Walk here for this guy. but I'll give you guys a few minutes to investigate.
Now, Lisa, when individuals go to the link and they look at this, can they also see the e-bike stations in the bordering district?
Yeah, so this is one of them here. This station right here. This is an existing station on Golden and Reservoir, or 197 near Reservoir.
I think there are several surrounding Lehman College there, right?
Here, they might not just like be on the map. I think we tried to show ones that were like in very close proximity. But yes, if you go to the like City Bike website, you're gonna see all of the stations that are currently on the ground and active. You know, once we actually get, you know, all of these approved, we do our door-to-door notifications, you'll start seeing these stations here populate on that City Bike map as well.
Anyone in the room, does any committee member have any questions regarding this section? You can move on to the next slide.
Great. So this is sorry, I was just distracted by this these marks. But these are just the last four in this community board. Happy to take any questions about these guys as well.
Go back one. Okay, that's Marble Hill, that's
Pretty great command of it all.
the Marble Hill Station. Yes.
Sorry, there's a lot of like background noise.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't know
trying
if
to
you
find
know.
who it is. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have any bike mechanics?
That would have been great. Okay, so does any committee member have any questions regarding? Okay. Thank you, and did you send this link over to the board office? And I know we have the presentation deck, but did you also send the link to the board office?
So I thought I did with the presentation. Did you only get the presentation?
I don't know, I'm asking a question.
So what I'll do is, sorry guys, so we'll send the link afterwards because we post it after we show it to the committee. So we can follow up tomorrow with the link that would be public for everyone.
Okay, thank you.
East or west?
I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
and before we get back into questions, I also wanted to clarify just on the parking. We will follow up with the number, but the other thing to note, and I think we mentioned this before, is that we tried to make use of as much of no standing that already existed. So in terms of parking numbers, we will follow up, but we did try our best to use spots that technically weren't removing parking as they're already no standing. Just wanted to clarify.
Okay, so you've already used the no standing areas and many of the daylighted areas.
Yes,
So
that's
there would
we've
be
tried our
minimal
best to
impact to
accommodate
parking.
them.
That's good to know, thank you.
Down. Thank you. Mr. Amabile, do you have a new question, or is this question from before? And if so, can you please limit this question? If you have a new question, please limit your remarks to 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a new question and more actually of a statement. First, I apologize for being slightly late, and I thank you for the work that you're doing in our community. I would just again implore you, as soon as possible, to expand this phase to some of the higher areas of the Riverdale and Kingsbridge area, specifically to the west. There are so many people who would benefit from access to City Bike, e-bikes, regular bikes, further up into Riverdale, Spuyten Duyvil, and those communities. Drawing the line right along Broadway is really, really unfortunate It prevents the city from achieving its goals as related to carbon reduction and reducing single occupant vehicle trips, all of those things. It's short-sighted and disappointing. And I really hope that you will work hard to serve all members of this community board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was already addressed at the top of the presentation, but we appreciate.
Doesn't discount my comment as well, for it. Thank you.
No, it does not discount your comment, but it was
Thank
addressed
you.
at the top of the presentation, and thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you for
Does
dismissing.
anyone in the room
Thank
have
you.
any further questions for?
So I just to kind of touch on the request for, expanding a little bit further, what I'd say is the best way to communicate that is in writing. So if you guys can write the DOT to say that you support this, that you want that, that's really great for us, to support any sort of expansion. So I would just encourage you to do that. Jody?
Just a quick
You have a new
question. I asked this about car share. Since the city is charging restaurants to use parking spaces, and we know that they're not charging the car share group like $200 a year for spaces, is the city charging Lyft to use these parking spaces?
So if it's just alternate side parking, no, it's like an even trade-off. But if it is metered parking, we do get a little bit of revenue generated from Lyft if it's on a metered, if we take metered parking. But for us, as a city agency, we think the trade-off is good for providing an additional community amenity when it's on-street parking.
Right, I'll just make my same comment that you've heard in other venues. I'm not against city bikes and car share and bike share. I don't drive, so parking is important to my neighbors, but I don't drive, so it doesn't take a space from me. But it sounds a bit like privatization of streets, where a company is, yes, I know they're paying for everything, but they're also making a profit from it. And when restaurants have to pay to make a profit from a parking space, I just wanted to bring that up because everybody says equity, but equity in action is very different than what it says on paper. So it's on the record. So that's my minute. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Lisa.
We appreciate your comment.
I had a question.
Sure.
What about the, right by Albany Crescent, there's, a couple of, I don't know, there's these hexagonal tiles. It's right over the Major Deegan. There's all that space, and I'm surprised. Maybe somebody brought that up, putting some of the bike share there. That's right by 231st.
There was a station there, near there. There was a station down. There's one at 224. There was one at Albany Crescent. I think a little closer to Bailey, but it was near in that general vicinity.
Yeah, because I think that, there's just all that, on Albany Crescent by 231st, there's just all that space, right above the Major Deegan that isn't being used, for anything. It's just, that would be a great place for the city, especially right.
Sorry, just to be clear, you're saying the Major Deegan and near 231st?
Yes, if you.
231st, Albany Crescent, Albany Crescent is the street between Bailey and Broadway.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's the overpass of the Major Deegan right at 231st Street.
Okay.
And
so
on the overpass at 225.
The overpass at 225.
You currently do that successfully.
There's a station already there, I think is what David is saying.
Right. And where they're asking, perhaps you could replicate those efforts at 231
Okay.
Albany Crescent.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly take a second look to see. Yeah.
It would have the least impact to residents.
Okay.
If you're using the sidewalk that's there, that's what they're suggesting.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if it's on the map, maybe I can, because I don't think it's represented on the map. You would see it from a satellite image, but I don't think, that little space that's right over the Major Deegan is represented on that map, so it would be more difficult for her to see.
Saying north.
I understand the,
between-
location that you're referring to,
On
so,
the west side of the, right, it over.
North and
it
south,
overhangs,
yeah.
There's a lot of space
Since they
there.
understand
Yeah,
that,
okay.
the location, they know where the location is.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, appreciate
All
your
right.
input. All right. Thank you. Any more questions regarding bike share?
No.
City bike, rather. Jody, you have another question, or was that from before?
I'm sorry, I didn't put it down. Thank you.
It's okay, no worries, just have to ask. Then, that being said, we can move on. Thank you, Lisa, for the presentation. We look forward, Teresa, to receiving the link so we can share that with the community. We can then move on to the next matter on the agenda, and I'm going to ask DOT to stay on the call because there are some old business matters that I know a couple of members of the committee wanted to ask DOT some questions, okay?
Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Ms. Alexander.
She's signing off.
No, she's not.
Oh.
Holly and Teresa, can you stay on the call, please?
yeah, no problem.
Yes.
Thank you.
It was brought up once before, I'm very concerned about the car share and, where they have, DOT has placed them. One, I was, privy to, this week, makes absolutely no sense, and I'm wondering if the car share is going to have another meeting, such as this, so that the community board can, judge where you've put them and, what it's doing to our community.
Yeah, so the car share program is a pilot program that we're currently still evaluating. I can take a look at when we'd be ready to share data and come back to the community board and present that.
And that will be soon.
I think so. I have to double check the timing, but I can definitely get back to you on when we'd be ready to share data on the car share sites. If you have sites right now that you're having issues with, the pilot program is so that we can get feedback, so we can determine if we're planning to move forward with car share permanently. So we'd appreciate getting any feedback on any of the sites if you guys are experiencing any sort of issues or if it's being heavily used, anything like that.
You have a particular site in
I
mind?
do have one particular issue that came up to me, this week, and that is on, West 227th Street between Henry Hudson Parkway and Independence. It's a very short street. It has parking on both sides. Put 2 spaces for the car share. One of them was empty, but you couldn't use the parking spot. It says that you're not allowed to park there. And, there is a doctor's, consolidated, office there where there are a lot of doctors. And, in order to go into your appointment, there's nowhere to park. You can't park on Independence, you can't park on the highway, and you can't park many cars in that street. And why they think that that is a good place for car share, I have no idea.
I'm sorry, and just to clarify the location, this was West 227th Street between Independence and which street?
Henry Hudson Parkway.
Thank you.
It's a very short street.
But isn't that an alternate side of the street parking area where people would park their personal cars overnight? Okay.
What has that got to do with it?
But in terms of accessibility to the doctor's office, it probably
But
isn't.
they're taking 2 spaces away, and one is flooded all the time. So there are 3 spaces in that short block that are never able to be parked in.
No, I understand. All I'm saying is, your comment about the doctor's office, it was alternate side of the street.
That makes it worse, because people wanna have,
No, but,
they have to keep their appointments.
no, but those spaces will be filled by people who park overnight there.
But not the zip cars.
it in zip car spot.
Zip car has the same.
Currently, it's alternate side of the street parking, which means that people will park there overnight and during the day. So you won't have access to it for the doctor's office. So whether it's a zip car.
There are 3 spaces that are being used for nothing.
I believe those empty.
No, they won't be empty. They won't be empty because people will park their cars there under the alternate side.
It's designated to car share. You're not allowed to park those car shares.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, if there's no car share there, they would be, let me finish, okay, Miriam? If there's no car share there, it would remain as alternate side of the street parking, which means that people would park their personal cars there, so it would not be available to the doctor's office either way.
But it is, because when they are alternate side at that particular time, you can get a spot. Because they move around. And there are empty spots. Before the zip car came, there were spots.
Thank you for your time.
Now, they're not there. And you can't park on Independence, you can't park on the highway.
Good job.
They should put another spot for every slot machine.
What?
As I mentioned, I think we can just take a look and see if there's any data yet on that
why would you
location and
do
get
that?
back to, and get back to everyone.
The car share just puts them wherever they want. They have no concern about the community. And they were supposed to come back, and Lisa says they are coming back, or whoever.
That's a valid point, yeah.
In the meantime, there are a lot of people that suffer because they put zip cars there.
Teresa, let me ask you this question. How long is the pilot supposed to last, and how long are you all, still, accepting input from the community? Is
We
it a
are-
6-month pilot, a year pilot?
It's a year and it's, we're accepting feedback on an ongoing basis. So anytime you guys are having any issues with any of the sites, please send it to us so that we can go ahead and, note it. And as well, we are monitoring usage and making changes if necessary. So that's also something that I'd like to note.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have a question for DOT?
No.
Not on this matter, on any,
On anything?
on
Well, I just want to acknowledge, Teresa, I noticed that at both legs of Independence Avenue, at Palisade Avenue, there are now, crosswalks. And according to your rules, you also put in stop signs. I imagine, that those will be the most ignored stop signs in New York City, but that's okay. Thank you for putting in the crosswalks. Now we just gotta get, traffic to, go by and give out tickets, because a couple of times people have been parking in the crosswalks anyhow, and they should get hit. But the whole point of the crosswalks was to make sure that people weren't blocking the ramps. So thank you, Teresa.
No problem. And we'll also reach out to the precinct for enforcement.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Teresa?
I said, no problem, and we'll also reach out to the precinct for some enforcement.
Excellent, thank you so much.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Ms. Alexander, and then Jody, you're next, okay?
Thank you.
The people that are here now from DOT,
Yes.
have they been here before when I brought up my other issue? Or am I talking to the converted or what?
No, this, Ms. Cruz was on the last call regarding 235 and Oxford.
So I
Yes,
was not at the June
last-
meeting, if that's where that was discussed.
It's been an
Apologies.
ongoing, concern since last year.
Yes.
Since,
A year ago in July, a woman, 99 years old, was killed in that intersection. And, I spoke to, Commissioner Rodriguez, and I spoke to the Assistant Commissioner at a meeting. We also had, maybe you, at a meeting, and you said you would get back to us. That has not been looked at, it has not been changed. I go shopping there and I wait until there is no car on the street before I even go into the intersection, because I don't wanna end up dead. So, I don't understand why DOT has not looked at it.
I'm sorry, the location is 235 and Oxford, correct?
Yes.
Right on the edge of a big shopping area
Area.
with Walgreens and Key Food, which sort of make it hard for drivers to see around the corner. and they zip through that intersection.
Well, actually, that car that killed the woman made a left.
I see. Okay, this is a location where we have a stop
let
control.
me just-
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
let me
ahead.
just say, they put up signs and nobody pays any attention to them. It is a disaster.
Okay,
They
so,
put signals on Johnson Avenue where there are lights, where you can stop the traffic, one of those, short ones that you press. But on 235th, they haven't done anything.
understood.
half.
Has correspondence been sent to our office regarding this location?
Respondents have been sent to your office about the location. When
Okay, so
DOT
I'll see if
shows
we
up at
redid the
meetings, we
study
raise the
for,
issue,
oh, sorry.
it's reflected in our minutes, and
And the commissioner was there.
Okay,
Talk
I
to
can
the
see if we
commissioner and the
redid our,
assistant.
our always stop sign or traffic signal study at this location and then get back to you on the
There is a
determination.
stop sign, but nobody adheres to it.
Right, but it's only stop signs on one street, right?
They should put a signal of some kind there that it doesn't happen.
what Teresa is saying is that she will look, and Teresa, do I have your word that you will get back to me within the next week to tell me if whether or not there was a traffic study already conducted at that intersection?
Yes, you have my word. I will definitely take a look at it. Actually, tomorrow I could let you know if we looked at it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm,
Thank you.
no problem.
Jody Cologne, yes?
Just a question about street resurfacing. I know Edsel Avenue, the loop road that goes to the Metro North Station, about 2 years ago was put on the resurfacing list for fiscal year '24. Do you know if that is coming soon or?
Sorry, since I wasn't anticipating this question, I don't have it right in front of me, but that's something I can also follow up with. I can actually send CB8 all the streets that are planned to be resurfaced for this fiscal year. I think
That would be great. Thank you.
helpful.
That
Yeah,
would be awesome. Thank you.
no
Yeah,
problem.
there's a question in the room. Go ahead, David.
Thanks for bringing it up, Jody. Darissa, by the same token, exactly where, Jody is talking about, the loop of Palisade Avenue underneath the Henry Hudson Bridge is very, very badly deteriorated. And I'm sure everybody was waiting until the construction on the bridge was done, but it's pretty much done. And
It's
it
never
really
done.
should, it really, the Palisade Avenue, Johnson Avenue, and Edsel Avenue, that T really is very badly deteriorated. It's time for that to get fixed. And,
I think that was on the
maybe-
list too, David. We waited a long time to
Darissa,
get
if you
these
could
on the
look into
list.
that also. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Like I said, I'll forward the list of locations that we have for CB8. And if that's not already on there, then we can go ahead and log a request for that to get it in, hopefully for the next fiscal year.
Perfect, thank you. Any more questions for DOT? Okay.
Ted has a
Ted Morris, question?
point of order, I'm not sure.
No.
You have a question, Ted?
Well, on, yes, just real quick. I've been listening to everyone in regards to the parking. Everyone realizes that parking is at a premium in the Riverdale area, but parking is also a premium here at Marble Hill. And for many years, off the corner of 230th and Broadway was diagonal parking, back-end parking. It was about 16, 17 parking spaces that were there. Once the street was resurfaced, the parking was taken away and regular parking, parallel parking was returned back to that corner, which means now we've gone from about 16 parking spaces to about 7 or 8. And that's only depending on if the car is parked tightly in those spaces. And I'm wondering, why was that taken away from the neighborhood?
What you're saying, Ted, and just as a point of reference, no one in this room, I can speak for everyone in this room when I say that no one in this room only focuses on parking in Riverdale. We recognize that parking is horrendous throughout the community district, and Marble Hill is one of the areas that we have spoken of in many meetings. Okay, so I don't want you to think that we don't focus on Marble Hill. We do. Okay, but Teresa, to Ted's point, and he raises a good point, can you please look into why the back-end angle parking was removed from that location, and it's from 230 down to 228, is that correct, Ted?
Yeah, it wasn't the entire block, but it was about 3/4 of the block. The diagonal spacing ended somewhere around the community center. So which is about, maybe, I'll say 50 yards, well, 25 to 30 yards short of the corner of 228th Street.
And
Yeah, I think they needed to flip lane.
Okay, okay. And
Okay,
you're talking about the
let me
western
look
side
into
of-
this request and then I can get back to you. I do see what you're referring to. Let me look into it and then I can get back to you on the reason why we changed it.
That would
Thank
be
you.
awesome, Teresa, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Are there any other questions for DOT? Thank you, Holly, Teresa, appreciate you staying on a bit longer. Look forward to receiving your updates next week.
No problem. Thank you for having us. I hope everyone has a good night.
Well,
Thank you,
you
good
too.
night.
Thank
Very
you.
productive, thank you.
Good night, thank you.
Is there any other old business?
32, is there anything to discuss tonight or another time?
And then we-
Sidewalls, some sidewalls.
No, haven't heard back from them.
Okay.
Okay. Talking on the parkway itself,
Yes,
not,
on the
okay,
sidewalk.
because I'm like 232 and I'm like, wait, I'm thinking on the street. Right,
Right,
that's
state,
that's state,
yeah,
okay,
that's where
right, it's not Teresa, okay.
So we need to, lost a lot of time, we need to. You and I can talk about this separately, whatever.
Perfect.
We talked before.
Any other old business? Any new business?
Have a quick item.
Maybe in a future meeting, could we, look into these, restaurant sidewalk sheds, especially ones that are not being used? I know, another board member, who's not on this committee has brought up, the Johnson Avenue shopping area, how, between the sheds and the double parking over there, it becomes impossible to maneuver around there. And there's only one left, and I'm wondering why that is allowed to still exist. I know there are some restaurants, especially on Riverdale Avenue, that do use them, but there are others, as you drive around through Riverdale, even Van Cortlandt Village, 231st Street, they're not used at all, yet they're allowed to remain.
Actually, that's something we could have brought up with DOT. is
Well, I didn't
managing
wanna-
that. No, I understand. No, they are responsible for the applications, the maintenance, the monitoring, blah, blah, blah. It's all under DOT.
It just adds to the chaos.
yeah.
And Ted brought it up, and, that just parking.
Chuck has complained about it a
Chuck
lot.
did, but Ted also, Chuck is the one that complained
Yeah.
in that area, and I'm over there quite often, and it's crazy over there.
It's not kept up, and.
No, and,
I think with the new legislation, that they're going to tear them down
If you didn't keep it up, it's.
if
They don't keep it up.
you don't keep it up.
But it's not kept up. It's-
And they're also going to, and they have to register them, so they become part of the,
I happened to see one shed being dismantled down in Kingsbridge on 231st Street. I happened to be at the light, and they were just crushing the whole thing and pulling it apart. When I tell you the amount of rodents that ran out from underneath that thing, I would not want to eat in any of those sidewalks, no matter how well maintained they are.
TMI?
That's all I have for new business. Gold Mine Donut Shop.
Huh? Wow.
Any other new business?
No,
If there's no other new business, may I entertain a motion to adjourn?
make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. Appreciate everyone's time on the call. Look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Have a great one. Stay safe, be well.
Good night, everybody.